Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel for the next installment in our ongoing new figure showcase series. And for this series, we'll be taking a quick look at the latest Hot Toys figure I'm adding into my collection. And it is in fact going to be the final villain pickup from Spider-Man No Way Home. And it is none other than the upgraded suit Green Goblin from the film's final battle sequence. So, look, at this point I've talked ad nauseum about my feelings regarding the movie with all the releases that have come before. So instead of going over the movie itself, let's just quickly touch on Green Goblin. At first, I think I was a little curious to see someone else take on the role, and I was maybe a little indifferent about having Willem Dafoe come back, just because I was hoping for a different iteration of the character. But I'll be honest, and this is also a theme with the movie, right? But seeing this version of the Goblin come up, and Willem Dafoe again, ended up being more nostalgic than I thought it would be. And it was nice to see that he hasn't really missed a step. His battle with the Goblin alter ego was still interesting to see, and even the events leading up to the film's final battle were really well done. You both hated him and couldn't help but feel some sympathy to him as a villain. And I think he brought out the best in Tom Holland too, with that final battle beatdown that he ultimately gives Norman. As far as the updated design, it definitely abandons the almost sleek look we saw in the early portions of the movie for something more aligned with the standard MCU look, which could be a little busier, again, but also a little bit more embracing of the character's comic accurate appearances, which I really liked. So let's take a look at the package we're getting here from Hot Toys, and you'll notice that it's actually a fairly simple, straightforward release. Very much in line with the first version of the Goblin we got from the movie. It doesn't really come with much. What really makes this a big release is the glider, which is an overpowering piece just sitting there next to the figure. You can just see how big it is from a scale perspective. In addition to that, you get 2 pumpkin bombs, a display stand, and a number of blades for the Goblin's new gauntlets, both in the recessed and deployed positions, and some additional hands, and that's pretty much it. So let's jump right into the accessories, and we're going to start with the hands as we normally do. Not a huge array here, just 2 splayed out ones and 2 that are meant to hold something like the bombs. They're really nicely done here with the nice patterns and ribbing along the fingers. And the first thing that stands out that's different from the previous release are the metal plates on the back of the hands, which show some nice sculpting and paint apps there and allow you to get a look at the modifications that Norman did to his suit during the course of the movie. Next up, you do get those 2 pumpkin bombs, pretty much identical to what we got with the standard version of the figure, just that the original suit version had 3 bombs, and here we're just getting 2. Now, they're identical to what we got before, nothing new, but that shouldn't detract from how good these are. Hot Toys tends to do really well with smaller pieces, and the detail work here is always stunning. You get the nice orange metallic textured paint first, with the bolts and the etched in lines very clearly and nicely defined, showing the green underneath. And you have the green lights on the ends, just beautifully done. Next up, you get a pair of goggles. They're nice, nothing fancy here. Essentially welder's goggles with a nice green tinted lens that also has the side protection with some texturing as well. Goggles do have an elastic band, so you can just slide these over the head. Nothing crazy again, but a really nice looking accessory. And then you get the blades. These are meant to be the ones that project out from the gauntlets he adds to his suit. So you do get 2 pairs that essentially create the stored version and then the deployed looks. They're fine. They're all plastic, and they are a little sharp, and I would say just handle with care because they do feel like they could break, especially if the figure were to topple over and something hits them. I feel like they're so slender they're just gonna snap. But pattern on the blades looks decent and they're functional. Next up is the big accessory, which is the glider. So look, if you have the deluxe Green Goblin, the original one, this won't be much of a surprise for you. Or if you watch that original review I did, again, it's going to be more of the same. The glider is pretty much identical. I didn't really see any appreciable differences here. There is a light up feature that you can see with the center and side engines glowing, that nice bright green. But again, this is achieved through the use of button cells. It's one of the things that I would like to keep on, so I might have to try and rig up some kind of a USB hack. Right, and it'll be good to see Hot Toys kind of continue the transitioning away from these cell batteries to USB. As far as the details on the underside of the piece, just stunning. Pistons that control the pitch of the wings are just phenomenal, with that great silver paint that also does have some hints of dark. Whether it's distressed or even meant to replicate some fluids leaking out, it's done well. And when you shift the wings, these are actually functional. So lots of detail and great paint apps that I really love here, especially if you look at something like the rockets on either side of the wings. Just very nicely done. The entire thing could have honestly just looked like a plastic toy, but it's credit to Hot Toys that they added so much detail and they did such a good job with it. Now, when you flip it over, the top is really done nicely too, with that nice purple textured surface, giving the figure a nice color variation. For this version, I do feel like it matches more nicely with the Goblin's purple makeshift hood. And I have to go back and look at the other version that we got with the previous Goblin, because it does feel like this glider almost has some additional weathering, albeit slight, but there are some dark dirt patches on the surface that stand out. Biggest issue I've had with the glider is that the plastic straps that unhinge to allow you to put the figure's boots in place are really tight and hard to open, so just proceed with caution on that. But overall, a gorgeous looking piece. So let's turn to the figure, and we're going to start with the bear sculpt, which again is identical to the one that came with the previous version. And like with the glider, it's not a knock on the work that's done here, because it is an incredibly well done sculpt. Normally I'm not a fan of super expressive appearances, but this looks perfect for Green Goblin, showcasing that manic joy that Willem Dafoe really brought to life with the character. Hot Toys killed it here with the detail work. Teeth and the open mouth, just phenomenal. And because he has that very pronounced smile, the rest of the face requires good attention to detail, from the wrinkles around his cheeks to the slightly wrinkled nose. It really is stunning, and I do always have to give credit to the eyes because they're so incredibly lifelike here, and I just really can't say enough how awesome this sculpt is. And even the hair, slightly disheveled, just fits the character so well, so another awesome job here. But of course, you do have two components that create a bit of an alternate look, and that's very much movie accurate. First one are the goggles, and the second is his purple hood. The hood is wired, so I found it very easy to pose nicely, and I have to admit, I do like how the sculpt looks with the goggles and the hood up. I think it creates a beautiful appearance and gives him just a different vibe. Plus with the hood, I feel like this is much more comic accurate. Just another great option, and surprisingly my preferred of the two. Now the figure itself is gorgeous. The original release was very much a clean look overall, maybe with some slight weathering on the suit, and it looked amazing for that look. Here we're getting the end battle suit, and I applaud Hot Toys for the extra work they put into this, because while similar, there are a lot of differences here. First of all, a lot of the armored elements are actually broken, and you can see the underlying purple suit beneath, and because the brakes are so variable, it gives the armor a nice weathered appearance, almost like a camo look. But even beyond that, this is a suit that's been heavily modified. There are additional armored elements throughout the arms, the torso, and the legs, and you get the gauntlets that include some rockets, so really nice updates. And my personal favorite is this fabric strap that links to the molded plastic belt and the pouch. Again, just recreating that comic look a little bit more. The armored elements are a combination of silver and gold, so the figure just has a little bit more of a visual pop, I think. And now, is this figure for everyone? I don't know. I personally like having both versions in my collection, and if you are a fan of the Raimi movies, that original release was essentially a licensed version of the Goblin from that movie, but this one is very much what you want, I think, if you're looking for a No Way Home accurate display. And one of the great things about this figure is also that even without the glider, he still has presence. With the blades extended, you can almost try to recreate the final battle between him and the Tom Holland Spidey, and have a variety of different looks with the goggles and with the hood. But for me personally, when I think Green Goblin, I always tend to think about the glider. So for me, I'm going to want him in full force with the glider for the display, because I do think that just elevates the figure and the piece to another level. But I will say this as well, no figure's perfect, and there are a number of issues that I have to mention. So the first one, which at first I didn't think was a real issue, but later on kind of became something, has to do with the stand. So very similar to the original release with the glider sitting on a small flexible post, but the original also included a secondary connector to hold the figure in place, and overall, maybe aesthetically it wasn't that great, but I did feel like it helped balance the piece a little bit and make everything feel a little sturdier. This version omits that secondary pull, and I did feel at times like the glider and figure together were a little on the wobbly side. And I'll say if the glider falls or tips over, those blades at the front are just going to snap off, so you have to be careful when posing it. Second issue, figure is a little restrictive when it comes to posability. Honestly, my dream pose would be the glider almost up and the figure kind of leaning forward, holding the front of the glider, almost squatting down. So it would be kind of a compressed look. Good luck with that, to be honest. I pushed this version more than I did the original because I did see some people posting great posed pictures of the figure. And I did push the glider a little bit, kind of folding it down. But I just found it hard to really get the figure in a hunkered down pose. Suit around the legs and torso is really the issue here. Arms and knees are decent, but you can't get the legs really posed up that well, so I do feel like it's something I'll continue to play with, but just became frustrating as I was setting it up. But those are really the major negatives I have here. The rest of the figure and piece is just stunning. And while that iconic masked version of Green Goblin is always going to stand out, there's just something with this final battle version that really pops for me. And I might just be leaning towards preferring this version a little bit more. But really a solid effort from Hot Toys on this one, and I'm glad they released him. Now, this also brings me one step closer to finalizing my version of the No Way Home line. At this point, I'm just waiting for the Toby Spidey, and then that's it. So one of the more in-depth lines I've collected in a while, but so far also one of the most impressive I've seen from Hot Toys, and this figure just continues that trend. So let me know your thoughts on this one, and as always, thank you for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.